What is the most wholesome act of kindness you have ever experienced or seen? I got pregnant at 16 from sexual assault. A school friend of mine, one that wasn't close to me but we talked at school, started bringing me crackers and pretzels at school for my morning sickness. First day it happened, he just slowly set it on my desk without a word and patted my back. Every day after that he would give me something for my stomach. When he found out I was raising my 3 younger brothers, taking care of the house, and working under the table at night to pay the bills all while pregnant, going to school without any support or help, he started dropping by my house, same bus route, with takeout so I wouldn't have to cook, then started spilling random $5 bills in random places around my house to help me with the bills. I didn't realize he was leaving me money at first, thinking I was just so overwhelmed I must have been setting down money and forgetting I put it down. I started crying when I figured it out because I felt so alone and overwhelmed, yet here is this saint of a guy dropping off food, gifting my money, offering to babysit the kids even if it was just in the other room while I took a nap, coming by to empty the litter box because it wasn't healthy for me to be doing it while pregnant, rubbing my back in class when it ached, walking me to the bus when I was in the waddling stage and no one wanted to wait up for me, giving me snacks to help with morning sickness, carrying my bag for me to classes. I'm very small and my daughter was a big baby so I was very off balance, coming by to help with dinner or cleaning at random, all without asking for anything in return and refusing to let me repay him. He made me feel like someone cared and not so alone with everything. There were nights I cried on his shoulder after putting the kids to bed because I was so stressed. He never did any of this expecting something or trying to get with me, seeing as he's gay, because many people when I mention this story assume he wanted to date me or wanted sex, but that wasn't the case. He's just a wonderful person. I'm glad to say years later he's doing great. He's engaged to the man he's been dating for years. He just bought his first starter home. He just graduated college and landed a great job right out of it last year, and seems really happy. I'm doing a lot better too. I wish nothing but the best for that man because I really think he kept me from giving up on life or going off the deep end when things were really rough. He was this bright beam of light when I was drowning. I was on a boardwalk and a little girl dropped her ice cream and was so upset, but her parents were distracted with their other kids, handing out cones, and some old dude in another line just handed his fresh cone over and walked away smiling. This is what kindness should be. No show, not wanting thanks. Good for the sake of good. I got a call that my grandfather was rushed to the hospital while I was at school. Him and I are very close. I broke down sobbing out of fear that something would happen to him. My friends sat around me and my bestie said, "You don't have to talk. You don't have to do anything right now. We're just gonna stay right here." They got me to stop crying eventually. My friends did something similar for me when my dad died. 3 of them drove 6 hours to my family's home. They pulled up, gave my mother a plant and amp, their condolences. We got in the car, one of them lit a joint, and we drove around the countryside for who knows how long. They didn't poke or pry or ask if I was okay. They knew that what I needed was to share a joint with my friends and cruise along in the afternoon sun, shooting the shit and listening to the radio. To not be constantly reminded that my father was no longer here. They just let me be, which after dealing with the sudden diagnosis and decline of my father's health over previous 4 months, being surrounded by aunts, uncles and cousins 24/7 since we received the diagnosis, and an unending wave of "I'm sorry for your loss" was just what I needed. Years have passed, we've all grown up into very different people and I don't keep in touch with them anymore, but I'll never forget what they did for me. My mom moved us from Chicago to Florida the summer before I started high school. Freshman year, a buddy I met in the neighborhood and I joined the wrestling team. My mom worked day shifts and we had a meet scheduled for Saturday morning about an hour away, so my buddy's mom agreed to drive us. Saturday morning comes and my buddy is sick and decides not to go, but his mom still offered to take me. We drove the hour. I got destroyed by a senior in about 45 seconds and we head back home. On the way back, my buddy's mom asked if me and my younger brother had gotten our library cards yet. I said we hadn't due to school, sports and my mom's day shifts limiting our time. She said we should get them soon. She dropped me off at home where the neighbor was keeping an eye on my 7-year-old brother. 15 minutes later I was getting ready to make us some sandwiches when there was a knock on my door. It was my friend's mom and she said she wanted to take us for library cards and lunch. We went to local library and she signed for our cards then took us for burgers. Didn't seem like much but 23 years later I stood as best man for her son at his wedding. My buddy from wrestling team and told this story during my speech. She had passed on 10 years earlier. I cried. He cried. My little brother who was also there cried. To this day I am still best friends with my buddy. His mom treated me like her own anytime I was at their house and I'll never forget the day we got library cards. I was on a plane in Chicago going back to Los Angeles after visiting with family. As we were about to pull back from the terminal to go take off I checked my phone for messages one more time before turning it off. My mom had sent this message while the plane was loading and I thought she was just saying goodbye. The message actually read my dad had just had a heart attack and was being rushed to the hospital. I panicked for a moment and a stewardess saw my face and asked me what was wrong so I told her. 2 minutes later the captain came on the PA and said we were going back to the terminal for a moment so a passenger can go take care of her sick father. I was surprised and a little embarrassed. When I got up to get off the plane, people clapped and shouted out good wishes. I really love Chicago. When I was 15 I went to the hospital because my appendix bursted. I got so sick I almost died. During a rare moment while I was awake the cleaning lady came by and I smiled at her. She said something to me in Spanish as I drifted back to sleep. When I got discharged she ran to find me and gave me a get well card with her name and a smiley face inside. I still have that card. I don't know who she is or even remember her face but I'll never forget her smile. That small act of kindness changed the way I thought about the world. Wow, that's really cool. I had a similar experience. When I was about 3 I was in the hospital for croup, and this random old guy happened to see me and he went and got me a cute little stuffed beaver, which I still have today. I wish I could find that guy and thank him. Posted this on a similar thread but this is mine. When I was 16, I landed myself in the ICU after a suicide attempt. I don't remember much about my time in the ICU, but I do remember the nicest thing anyone ever did for me. The paramedic that brought me to the hospital the night before came up and asked to see how I was doing. This perfect stranger that had known me for all of 45 minutes took time out of his day to see if I was doing okay. It was the most thoughtful thing anyone has ever done for me. A few years ago, right around the 10-year anniversary of that night, I had my 2 kids with me at my daughter's community night at her school. I went up to him and introduced him to my 2 awesome kids and told him who I was. He remembered me and we shared a very special hug. Edit. Thank you for the silver kind stranger. I was about to go to bed, and now I'm crying. So happy you had the chance to improve your situation. Why the fork is someone cutting onions in my room at 4 o'clock in the morning? When I was in 4th grade I had pretty severe dyslexia. I had a 1st grader's reading level. My best friend in my class was named Frances. She was the smartest person in our entire class. We got along so well. I remember her talking to our teacher after school and then asking me if I'd like to come to her house to read stories together a couple times a week. She never made me feel bad, never appeared to be frustrated and always acted like we were having the most fun ever. We started reading stories the teacher had given her but it was way over my head. I would leave feeling frustrated and stupid. This went on for like 2 weeks then she told me to bring that Shel Silverstein book Where the Sidewalk Ends Over. That was it. Everything clicked. A 4th grader, taking her own time to better a friend struggling. Frances, I will forever be grateful to you. Icing on this cake I ended up getting a job as an editor for a Hearst publication right out of college start. Have you had the opportunity to thank Frances for this? If not, I bet it would mean the world to them. It's so nice to have people around you that encourage you and don't give up, even if you already did. And congrats with the job, so cool. Damn, Frances sounds like a cool friend. It was around November-December and I was behind a woman at the grocery store who did not have enough money to buy her groceries. She had 3 young kids with her and she was having to pick and choose what they would take off. I was living paycheck to paycheck at the time myself but felt so terrible for her since she had kids. Couple gets in line behind me and realize what's going on. I hear them have a little convo and one of them asks to get by me real quick. Couple behind me paid for all her groceries and added $200 gift card for future groceries. She started crying, I started crying, and cashier got weepy. Definitely took that life example and have helped others when I can now too. I was a cashier for a little over a year and a half. It doesn't happen often, but it leaves a good feeling with everyone. One time when I was a kid, our priest from school took our class to the church to rosary and I accidentally dropped mine and it broke, so the priest gave me his that he got from the Pope. I still have it to this day. Some tier 1 weapons grade ammunition should you ever get haunted or need to perform an exorcism. That's so cool. I'm Catholic too. There's a tradition that a lot of people follow. Basically, if someone needs a rosary, for whatever reason, and you have one yourself, you give it to them right there on the spot. I was praying and our chaplain caught me. I was using an Anglican style that I had fashioned myself by just tying knots. It looked like shit but got the job done. He gave me his without thinking. That rosary has been through multiple deployments, looks beaten to hell and used. It's easily one of my favorite possessions. I was having a tough time. I was literally screaming a Hail Mary when he found me. He put his hand on my shoulder and said, "Son, you don't need to scream, he can hear you just fine." He took my rosary thing that I was really using to just count and handed me his and just said, "Here, this will be easier to use. It's served me well for all my deployments. It will serve you well too." Well, once this guy posted a picture of himself smiling because he reached 200 karma. All the comments were people shaming him for only having 200. I commented that I really liked his smile. He responded and said that he had been needing that and thanked me. Thought about that for a good week. Shame on them for shaming him for only having 200. 200 is big deal. I love stuff like that. I carry around extra masks and a dad with a little girl that didn't have a mask who was my daughter's age was going into a laundromat. I handed him an extra mask that I knotted so it could fit her. He immediately started beaming when I gave it him and thanked me. Way too many people don't get that. A lot of people are much more casual on Reddit than they are. Like, sometimes I am baffled by how low somebody's karma account will be, but then I remind myself that Reddit could probably be considered one of my actual hobbies. Of course I'll get the occasional blow up comment, especially when I shamelessly piggyback off higher rated comments like this one. Karma is dumb and people put way too much store in it, except cosmic karma. If that's real then it's not dumb, and I would like to point out I don't kill spiders. After the widow died in her house across the street from where I grew up, my parents found a loving home for her beautiful black and white cat, Tompkins. They knew how much Miss Laney loved Tompkins and wanted to make sure he was provided for. It made me think even more highly of them that they would care enough to find just the right new home for him. Your parents sound like wonderful people. Between my junior and senior years of college, I was basically homeless. Dorms were shut down and I didn't have an apartment. I was shuffling between lounges in the grad student area. One day, when I was walking to work, I saw a homeless guy on the street. I bought him breakfast. The next day, I saw the same guy helping an old lady cross the street after he bought her breakfast. I thought it was cool how he passed on the good fortune. It's cool how you had an impact on him. That might have changed his life. The left side of my pants was ripped by my best friend when we were having fun in the classroom, resulting to other people seeing my underwear. My teacher advisor asked me to get the sewing box at the faculty room. So while we were doing the math exam, she made me sit with her on the right side of her table and sewed my pants. Thank you, Mrs. Pinocchio. You deserve long life of happiness. As a student, that was the best experience of my high school life. We were stuck in traffic at our intersection and it was busy and there was this group of ducks, with a lot of ducklings BTW, and they looked kinda confused to me, and this lady pulled over her car and guided the ducks to the sidewalk. If the ducks continued they would have most definitely gotten run over. I just found that really cute and wholesome. I've done the same. The drivers who can see you smile. The others honk their horns. I prefer to help the ducks. I got out of an abusive relationship several months ago. I had to completely restart my life with very little in savings. I finally found an apartment that was in my price range, barely, but couldn't afford to furnish it yet. A guy I had just started talking to came over to see the place and hang out for the weekend. He had some errands to run, so I got home before him. When he finally got there, I opened the door and was greeted with him holding several boxes and 2 weeks worth of groceries for myself and my daughter. One of the things he bought was a brand new TV. The one I had was the size of a computer monitor. No one has ever done anything like that for me before. I kept asking why. He walked up to me and said, "You're a good person and you deserve good things to happen to you. I want you to look at the home you're creating and be proud of how far you've come." This man has asked me for nothing in return since the day we met. We're taking things very slow, but I am grateful every day for his patience, friendship, and kindness. In 2008 my job ended, but I had the option of continuing our health insurance for another 6 months, as I remember. I was often late making my payments and would call the lady managing our account to ask for more time and to reassure her that I would pay. She was very patient and almost offhand in our conversations, and we would talk about our families a little. By December 2008 I owed them $10,000. Both our cars had been repossessed. My wife had had uterine cancer and a hysterectomy, while I owed thousands of dollars to the insurers. That December was our last month of coverage, and I called our account manager to figure out a way of eventually paying the $10,000. I was still unemployed. She listened to me for a moment and then said, very quietly, "Don't worry about it." I wasn't sure I heard her right, so I said, "Did you say, don't worry about it?" She said yes, and then said, "Be safe." I will always remember her remarkable kindness. Still get tears in my eyes thinking of her kindness. Congratulations for making it till the end. Please smash that like and subscribe button for 1 million years of good lucks. La 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 la.